Welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Taranil, and with me today is Adil Belihomji, CTO at OXIO. OXIO is the world's first telecom-as-a-service platform provider. Headquartered in New York, OXIO is bringing telecom to the cloud as a turnkey software solution any enterprise, brand, or influencer can use to become an MVNO or embed connectivity into the existing digital products and customer experiences without the costs and constraints of legacy telecom and with no telecom expertise required. Adil joins us as part of our exclusive editorial segment on Open RAN. Welcome, Adil. Great to have you on today's episode.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay, so first off, for our listeners who are not familiar of this, can you explain what Telecom as a Service actually is, and how does it challenge or differ from the traditional MVNO model and also the traditional MNO model?
Right. So think of Telecom as a Service. It's a cloud-based offering. It's a SaaS-based product essentially. What we do is, you've got traditional complexities that are baked in on the MNO side or on the telecom side essentially. And what we do is we extract all of that. So it's a cloud-based SaaS platform that sits on top of the RAN and the spectrum that's provided by the MNO. So we connect directly into the core of the MNO, and then we provide API services that are made available to MVNOs. So essentially, you abstract all the complexities and you make it very simple, nice, clean technology layer that sits on top of the core that allows MVNOs to innovate, co-create and build other brands that could be, in the mobile space that could be more effective in the MVNO space. So, what it does is it basically allows us to manage and give full control to the MVNO to do their business the way they want to do it, right? And essentially meeting the customer where they are. So think of all the data that actually gets generated by the core. That data belongs then to the MVNO, and we can actually create a full customer 360 or a corpus of that MVNO and provide it back out. So you're now having the ability for the MVNO to create actionable insights for their data for their customers and meet them where they are and provide them better insights to them. So what TaaS actually does is it provides full control, full capability, full flexibility, management of plans, management of activities, management of notification, creating their own CRM, creating their own distribution. While they manage all that up top, we take the hard job of managing the telco, and we obfuscate the complexities of telco and we provide them just the API layer. In addition to that, what it also does is it gives us the capability of having insights directly into the network too. So it's a two-way street, right? So you collect the data from the telco side and you're able to now pump data back into the network, allowing for capacity planning, allowing for first call resolution, having the ability to predict behaviors on the network and have the ability to kind of resolve them before they actually happen. So it comes with a lot of plus points and it comes with a lot of capabilities that effectively can better not only the brands and the MNOs that are sitting on top, but also the core network that's actually down below us. So it's a pretty cool way of thinking of reinventing the future for MVNOs as such, by this telecom as a service layer.
So your immediate customers would be MVNOs mostly?
Yeah, so we are targeting obviously customers that are B2B, and think of customers that always wanted to be MVNOs but just couldn't be because of all the complexities that when you talk to an MNO or you talk to any other MVNE, they basically give you a systems integrator or they give you a set of APIs that are very complex in nature, and it's very hard for them to actually maneuver through that. So then they gave up, right? So what we do is we give them, think of like how, AWS actually opened up compute and storage. We're opening up telco with a simple set of APIs. Think of Stripe, how they're opening up payment channels. So similarly, we are actually in the same trend or in the same vein of actually trying to, build a layer that manages the components that sit on top of the core. So retails, fintechs, those are predominantly our target market.
So if we look at the hierarchy, like you have the infrastructure provider, and on top of that, we have an MVNO operating, say, probably leasing that infrastructure. And then you have an MVNO that uses MNO's, the network and all that. And you guys sit on top of that. You bring a capability on top of that. You abstract that. So is that how the layering would look like?
Yeah, so if you think about the stack is pretty simple, right? Like we don't use any core components provided by the MNO, so we directly interface with their what we call as their gateways. And so from the S6 gateway, essentially we get the transaction for voice, text, and data, and we manage the components that are provided out to the MVNOs. So the stack is essentially you've got the Spectrum and RAN, and then we've got the OXIO core, which is basically the Telecom-as-a-Service layer. And then there's an API layer that sits on top, and then you have the MVNO's app or their retail sites or their customer service sites that actually interact with our APIs. So it's a very lean stack. This is not a legacy over legacy over legacy over legacy sandwich that's been built. It's a very lean, clean stack with exposes elements out to the MVNOs.
Yeah, makes complete sense. That it basically simplifies the existing stack. And does that mean that virtually anyone can be an operator, can carry an operator brand?
Yeah, I mean, it opens up the capability and the flexibility for just about anybody and everybody who would want to step into the industry and become an MVNO. Obviously, there are things that they would have to do from a marketing awareness and distribution standpoint. But other than that, like the core elements that are there, again, I bring up the AWS model where if you've got an application that you want to build, like you need power and storage and compute. You connect into AWS and you get that, and then the rest is yours, how you distribute it and how you manage it, right? So similarly here, we do the exact same thing, and we take care of everything. Lawful intercept. We take care of the components associated with any operator, if you think about it, right? Like so, taxation, lawful intercept, regulatory compliance, all the models that are baked in for that given country, we would actually manage, right? And this is like the vision is to be a global core. So today we are in the US and in Mexico. I mean, down the road, like there is a global expansion route that we are actually thinking of.
So, like capabilities like BSS, like mediation, policy charging control, and stuff like that. Do you offer that as well?
Yeah. So again, as part of the core, right? Like we do have an OCS. We have a policy control. So if you want to shape the traffic, if you want to actually rate the traffic differently, we provide like very seamless plans that you can offer to your customers. Again, giving you the full flexibility of how you want to manage it. Typical MENO or MNO plans essentially are you get a box and you got to check out of the four, and that's it. That's all what you get. You don't get anything more, right? Here, we open up the full rating schedule for you, so you can actually provide standard rating. You can provide by the ton, by the message, or by the voice at the lowest level possible, and by the day or by 30 days or even yearly plans, right? So all these complex plans that are actually out there, we enable those directly to the customer. So think of a plan where you want to create a social media plan that is effectively zero rating some of the social media traffic. We will actually provide for that also. So we would do DPI and make sure that we can actually label the traffic correctly so that it can be rated down the road for the MVNO. But all that's given through the GUI that we actually present back out to the MVNO. So think about complex plans, flexibility in plans, notification of the customer, timeliness of the customer in terms of rating, charging, billing. So the OCS basically allows for that we have the policy control manages and shapes the traffic on the network, and we present that back out to the MVNO through a simple set of APIs.
So, with like a solution like what you guys provide, will there be like a blurring of distinction between an MVNO and MNO? Because both guys can use this platform.
Right. So effectively, our target is basically to enrich the MNOs experiences with MVNOs, right? Like we want to bring more MVNOs and enterprise customers to the networks, right? And essentially, what we want to do is we want to we want to provide that capability matrix that sits on top of MNOs that can actually enhance the experience for all these MVNOs. So if you think about the the lines that get blurred, the lines blur immediately after the core, right? So if it's an MVNE, an MVNA, and I mean, I've heard the term of MVNX, like, that you provide almost everything that's there that sits on top of the MNO. And the like those are the flexible capabilities that you can actually provide that sit on top of the MNO. So the lines do actually get blurry, but it's all about like bringing the right experience to the right customer at the right points in time, right? So think about a financial institution which basically wants to have the ability to manage the customer from a compliance and regulatory reasons, and they want to actually make sure that there's no insider trading, there's no text messages, there's no over-the-top apps that are used. We allow the capability for actually tromboning that data back out to their facilities so that they can actually provide AI insights on that call in live, when the call is actually happening live, to make sure that that call is in compliance, in regulatory for the finance and fintech. In a typical MNO, like, these possibilities are far and few in between. And if they happen at a massive price point. And what we do is we actually provide for that and have the capability of providing that capability because of we own the core and we have the capability of actually sending it out to them through our API stack. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, it does. It does. It does sound really cool. And a relatively new concept, yet I think it provides unlimited opportunities for MVNOs. They can scale up now, and then they can bring a lot more capabilities easily, much faster. So now I know one of the other things that we wanted to talk about is about Open RAN, right? So Open RAN and how it promotes interoperability and openness and stuff. So how does the flexibility and the multi-vendor concept promote your platform? Does it enhance your platform?
Yeah. So, look, I mean, obviously, we are a technology company, so any advancements in technology towards bringing openness and bringing more, I would say, less vendor dependency and more openness in terms of technology is benefit to us, right? So, like that's like the preamble for me, right? So very open towards like bringing in more technology. But we don't see our success really baked in on Open RAN needs to happen for us to be successful, because today we are live and we are connected with MNOs and we provide that flexibility and we provide the capability of having quote unquote multi-vendor or multi-MNO, multi-country and a multi-cloud environment, right? So we are, when it comes to our stack, we are pretty flexible in actually how we connect. But when Open RAN does actually follow through, and I think it's a few years out where, there's still work that needs to be done, and, partners and vendors have to still talk about standardization in terms of like how the interfaces work. But when it does come to that, we will absolutely benefit from it because, obviously faster time to market, lower cost, having the ability to have flexibility in plugging into any vendor. Like, we're not bound to a single, MNO type of a vendor. So driving new innovation obviously will speed up innovation, and it benefits us, I mean, ultimately, right? So while we're not so dependent right now because 4G and 5G is already in play, and so is 5G SA, like, we've got everything that we need to be successful from a TaaS perspective. But down the road, yeah, absolutely. It can add some benefits by not just being tied down to one single vendor and one single platform in terms of delivery.
All right. Okay. Okay. So going back to the topic of Open RAN, yeah. While we talked about the benefits and the possible benefits that can come from Open RAN, does it also bring some challenges? Because your platform sits on top of the a network architecture, the network infrastructure. So when it's being managed by multiple vendors and different people bring in different equipments and they have their different systems, does it make it more difficult for your platform to be integrated?
Right. So we follow all the 3GPP standards, right? Like, so from a standards body standpoint, we don't see that much of a challenge when it comes to actually integrating with, let's say, an Open RAN concept that might be out there. But what we do feel is obviously, the capability that it provides, there's a bigger upshot than any downside. So if there's things that we need to kind of retest or have the capability of actually, redeploy certain things, absolutely. Like, why wouldn't we do that, right? But I don't see challenging, other than, there's obviously a cost involved in getting these vendors to comply and getting these vendors to talk to each other and having them the ability to have the stack baked in for the MNO. So there is a cost on the MNO side. For us, because we sit on top and we follow the standards through the S6A, like, we would gladly take the openness that they would actually provide once they actually get there. Still a few years out, so less challenging for us. Only upshot for us, I would say.
Great. The use of cloud in Open RAN, where they are moving a lot of workloads to the cloud. How does that work with, the fact that you guys are also, using the same model? So,
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be, right? So as you start moving workloads closer to the edge, it becomes easier for us also to kind of get those capabilities baked in. But again, the concept of TaaS essentially is it resides on top of the RAN, right? So it's not like completely meshed into the RAN. But once you get into edge computing and you get into places where you need really hyper low latency, whether it's autonomous driving or it's gaming or VR or any one of those, where you can quickly spin up things that are made associated with capacity and load, I think that's where the benefits of the cloud actually come into play. And coupled with the TaaS that we offer, which is also cloud based, it now provides extensive application to the providers, like whether it's a VR gaming or an autonomous vehicle or a tracking system that's actually out there for logistics. I think those components actually, when they interact with each other on the cloud, it does provide that extensive benefit to scale up and down depending upon the needs and volumes of the customer. So I think that when the cloud actually comes into play, sitting on the edge, it'll have a massive role in stacking up Open RAN. Also, because what it does is it virtualizes these vendors, and now you can actually sit on a virtualized stack that can then provide edge compute, can provide faster response time, better latency, better throughputs to these providers. But we're years away from that, so it'll probably be there. The push is there, and it's again time, focus, and energy that's required on the MNO side. It's required on the vendor side to come together to kind of make that success.
So I think you just mentioned some of the use cases, like the URLLC type of use cases, and where the use of cloud will greatly enhance connectivity, the speeds, latency, and stuff like that. So that's really good news, for operators. So let's come back to the market for TaaS, right? So how do you, what do you foresee in the next maybe 1 to 2 years regarding the demand for TaaS services and also the competitive landscape? I mean, do you see a lot more providers coming in, or are they going to be new providers? I mean, new players, or just branching off from existing vendors, branching off to become TaaS
Yeah.
kind of providers?
So, you know, I'd like to use the quote, like, it all works when it all works, right? Like, so, like, the full stack has to really function to make TaaS successful, right? Like, you can't have one piece, um, like, you can't just have like an HSS and say, okay, I'm a TaaS provider, or you can't just have an OCS and say, I'm a TaaS provider. You're going to have the full kit, right? And the full kit is essentially, that's why we call it like Telecom-as-a-Service. Because it's essentially all the way from the APIs down to the core. Like, you got to build the full stack. So, we've taken on that monumental task of actually making it a global core that's made available in multiple countries. Taking the task of actually being in that country with the regulatory requirements, with the taxation requirements. It's a monumental feat. You just don't wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to do this, right? So I think it's going to be, for new entrants to come into the marketplace, it'll be somebody with strong amount of cash pool and somebody with the willingness to actually go through the pains that it takes to get into a country. Like, how do you manage the regulatory, the taxation, the components associated with compliance, and then build the entire core. Our our ability to automate that is basically where we take pride in, right? So take the TaaS platform in a new country and have the ability to kind of have a one-click deployment that blankets the country is basically what we are going after. So if you think about the entry points that we would do in a new country, that's basically our entry point, how we get there. But if you think about the market that's coming in, we're getting many use cases that are very different from typical MNOs, right? And the reason they are actually coming to us is because they believe that they want to innovate and they want to create other experiences that typical MNOs actually bound them to their own core. So effectively, a fintech, a payment channel, a rideshare app that works across multiple countries. Today, you know, when you've got like Etisalat or any one of these other providers that are out there that have siloed stovepipe MNO integrations, if there is a app that sits on top of that, that essentially is having multiple integrations in multiple countries. And what these customers really want is they just want one core. They want one integration. They don't want to go into multiple countries and have spin up another set of APIs and another set of test cases, and they just want one simple. So those examples are really coming to us, and we believe that there's a strong market. There's going to be, in this global economy, there's a stronger market for something like that to be made available, that is seamless across countries, seamless across networks, seamless across clouds, and seamless across the typical currency that you actually provide, right? So cross-border plans is very important. We believe that that's another market segment that's actually going to heat up pretty quickly. Being local in every country where you travel and not having the expected, large bills that you get from our international roaming, that's another market segment that we're looking at. So whether it's retail, fintech, rideshare apps, or other co-creating technologies that are there, like payment terminals that are also global, that require connectivity. Like, these are the guys that are basically approaching us, and we believe that there's a very strong market for this to come across on the TaaS. So, yeah.
Wow, interesting. Really, we can see the kind of potential and the opportunities. I have one last question. Are there scenarios where operators will keep their own core, but also use TaaS so that they can serve the MVNO market? Like, they become greedy and they want to capture the MVNO market as well and use you guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting play. I think that. So can it be possible? Yes, absolutely. Right. There is a world where there are tower companies and spectrum companies that are basically out there that require a core and want to be MNOs. There is a world where fiber companies want to be MVNOs, and they've got their own again spectrum holdings and would like to have the capability. But I think MNOs have invested quite a bit, right? So I'm not sure if they're ready to throw away the stack and figure it out, right? Whether they want to actually go through a TaaS model. But there is a world where it could be possible. There is a world where you could potentially have in other countries, maybe not in the US, but in other countries where it's a costly proposition to manage your own core because of the legacy stacks and the legacy ways of actually implementing the core, and to actually put a more modern stack and put a more efficient stack that basically can manage it at a much lower cost and a much better experience, much better price point for the end customer. So I think there is a place where that could potentially work itself out. Yeah.
Awesome. I think it sounds, that it provides a new level of flexibility, basically, for operators, right? And for them to pursue, maybe they want to really customize their services, and they can just do it very quickly using this platform. So I think, we've covered a lot of topics under this, and I think we have come to the end of our session. So thank you, Adil, for joining us today with all these brilliant insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Appreciate it. Take care.
Okay.
Bye
All
now.
right, sure. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for listening. If you guys want to learn more, visit oxio.com and follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next session. Bye-bye.